Good morning everyone and welcome to another one of Mr Samson's assemblies. It's the first of a series of perseverance assemblies, as that is our value for the final half term of this year. And as you came in to the hall, you would have seen our perseverance sign, which it just lives just outside of 4EM. So over the next few weeks we'll be learning about perseverance, hopefully having some deeper discussions at home with someone else in your family home around perseverance. We're going to be looking at people that have shown perseverance. You've seen our GGS Super Learner Board once again, which has been updated, a slightly more red appearing. And obviously in order to be on that board, it's making sure that you're showing that not only independence now, but that perseverance of achieving any of the work that is set on Google Classrooms. You'll also see that I've moved to a different place in the hall, and I thought a really nice backdrop would be the TT Rockstars display that is in the school hall, which also is a good illustration of how well people have persevered to improve in their times tables. I've also, as it's the first one, I thought I'd have a little think about how maybe I've shown sort of perseverance over the years, had a bit of reflection time, and also you might see some familiar props, because obviously when I've mentioned in previous assemblies, the values that we have at school, all 12 of them, are very much intertwined with each other. And very much so, if we're able to show any of those values in our behaviours around school, for our work, then we're likely to be very successful. And once again, there'll be opportunities to pause the assembly so you can have those deeper discussions and broader discussions around some of the questions, and just to have a little chat about some of the content perhaps. If you have any ideas, any thoughts or anything that you want to contact me by, you'll also see my email address, and I'd love to hear about your thoughts on maybe some of the answers to the questions. And they are, where do we start? First of all, maybe, why is perseverance a school value? You know, once again, it was about 3 years ago now that the school council voted on our desirable dozen values, and perseverance was one that was voted for. So why do you think the children voted for that? Why is that so important? So that's question one. What does perseverance mean to you? As you know, in your PSHE sessions at the start of any term with Mrs. Bolchin, you'll know that that is very much what we think about to create a display in our hall. So what does perseverance mean to you? Have there been any examples that you can think of that really are quite vivid in your memory? So what does perseverance mean to you? How can you show perseverance? What might be the evidence to show whether you've persevered with something? Again, for a bit of a deeper discussion there with someone at home. Similar to why is perseverance a school value, how important is perseverance? And what are the thoughts of those at home? So again, really trying to have those broader discussions with someone at home around some of these questions. And lastly, how have you persevered over the last 10 weeks? And again, not just you, your parents supporting you with the home learning, and that's just one example of how you've shown perseverance over the last 10 weeks or so, uploading work to Google Classroom. So you can see how they are all interlinked with each other. There's a close relationship with our values, and also some of the content that we've been looking at in the last few weeks, very specific to what we're all experiencing at the moment. Once again, perseverance was originally planned for this half term, mainly looking at how we can all try that little bit harder to finish the year on a high if we possibly can, and also start to look towards to next year. And really, what would we need to sort of try that little bit harder at towards the end of the year, going into next September, if you're starting a new school, for example. So another reason why perseverance is our value for this half term, very relevant for now. So once again, well done. I think it was Ethan, Holly and Clark that have made it to our GGS Super Learner Board over the last couple of weeks. There's still plenty of space, and it's got slightly redder over the last few weeks. So well done those people in Mars. You're catching up with Neptune because it was quite blue heavy. So a little message there to maybe our Saturnites There's maybe a splattering of yellows up there, but we probably need a few more. And once again, there's plenty of space. So once again, this doesn't stop now. We need to carry on and really make sure that we're embracing the tasks that are being shared on Google Classroom and my challenges perhaps over the last few weeks of term. And again, we really want to fill that board as much as possible. So, as you can see, I've got my little box of props here. So, going through some of my possessions, going up into the loft and going into my wardrobe, I thought, what might be examples of showing perseverance? Well, I mentioned my photo, that's me and my mum, some years ago now. I have to say, that's quite a fringe I've got there. And it was around sort of independence and how we had to be sort of independent with my father left. But actually, also we were quite determined to make sure that we were as helpful as we could. So we persevered as well. So it's a very relevant prop for this value as well. As I was getting older, I became quite interested in sports, and that was something I persevered at. And as I shared with you in a previous assembly, I found myself to be quite independent, particularly with a certain sport, if you remember. So there's a little test for you maybe. A certain sport that wasn't that popular at school, but whilst I was also independent, I was quite driven to be and persevered to get better at that sport. And so football and this other sport, won't give away because that's for you to remember, were the sort of key elements of that. And I remember, as you can see here, I got a letter which is still quite pristine, and it's still something I'm quite proud of. And it was a letter from the head teacher of my secondary school in Surbiton, saying that I'm writing to inform you that your son Adam has been awarded a head teacher's commendation for excellence in sport, which just went to show my perseverance started to pay off. And it was an area of keen interest was my sport. And there is the certificate as well, dated 8th of March 1995. So even though it's some years old, it's something that I value quite a lot. Now, obviously sticking with the sport theme, I thought I'd show a little photograph of me in the early days of playing football, and it's your task to try and pick out whether you can spot a young Mr. Samson in there. So that was one of my first teams that I played for. They were called Alpha Athletic, and I was one of the youngsters there. So very much starting to play football, but I obviously had an interest in it and therefore went to persevere and get better and better and better. I was quite unique at the time in the sense that I was left-footed, and at the time that was quite a rarity. So I played on the sort of the left-hand side, either left fullback or left midfield. And as I got older, I also started to play for other teams. Again, your task to see if you can spot a young Mr. Samson, although slightly older than my Alpha Athletic days. That was a team called Orient. And I felt that I was starting to get better and better through perseverance, getting better at playing football. And those were two teams that I played for on a Saturday morning. And then, as I got that little bit older, that's quite the flat top there as well, very 80s hairstyle there. I started to play for another team, and it was a team called Bushy Mead that were based around sort of the Rains Park, Wimbledon area. And persevering to play for this team, and there were some very talented footballers, much more talented than I was, I must say. And there was a forward who was called Richard, and he actually had trials with Manchester United. It helped us be a really good team. And one of the things that are also quite precious for me are my little medals here. So these are two that I've kept. I think my mum must have some of the rest in her loft. But during the season of 91 and 92, we were the under-13s league champions, and that was League One. And not only that, but reminiscent of Manchester United, if teams gone by. We were also cup winners that year as well in 91, 92, and you can see there, it's the Epsom and Ewell Parks Boys Football League, where we won the double that year. So that was something that is actually quite precious to me, that I persevered and had to work really hard at. And knowing when I was particularly younger that wasn't the sort of the best on the team, far from it, but I was quite driven and persevered. I enjoyed the game and wanted to improve, and liked going to football training, and was willing to put in the graft to do that. Speed forward a few more years, and I think these are other photos that I've shown, but this is an interesting one. This is one that was from the year 2000, and that's on one of my first teaching practices. That was while I was at university, and I was a school in Holmes Chapel in Cheshire, and there were a couple of lads that wanted a photo on my last day. So again, once I sped forward from my footballing days, I was obviously interested in becoming a teacher and persevered to become a teacher over 4 years. And at the end of those 4 years, I think it's another photo that I've shared, I graduated from university in order to become a fully fledged teacher. Let's fast forward a year, and there's my official sort of letter saying that I'm able to become a teacher. I passed my induction. And then, fast forward a few more years, I did a qualification to become head teacher. So again, all of these are examples of where I've persevered through different stages of my life. And I know that you are actually showing and have shown that those levels of perseverance in your life as well, and especially over the last 10 weeks. And I suppose on a sort of, as far as hobbies are concerned, I still play football, maybe not to that sort of level. Obviously, I don't have the legs for it now. Age is catching up with me. But there's other hobbies that I've also persevered with, and I think I've mentioned in previous assemblies that I learned to play the guitar when I was at university. There was a lecturer there that did some free lessons, and I thought, I'm 18, 19, am I a bit old to be learning to play the guitar? And it's one of those things that I've never looked back from doing now. I'm really proud of the fact that I picked up a cheap guitar at the time, and I did it to sort of become a bit calmer, I suppose, and it was a way of actually just trying to relax, was playing the guitar. And obviously having an interest in music I was keen to do that. So another example of my perseverance is some of the sheets of music that I print off. There's a website called Ultimate Guitar where I print off the sort of the tabs and the chords. I can't read music, unlike my wife, who's a very talented musician, who plays the flute and is able to sort of put me to shame when it comes to playing the guitar. But I know the chords, and as you can see, this is a song called Bad Moon Rising by Creedence Clearwater Revival, one of my favourite ones to play. And as you can see by the chords, it's quite an easy song to play. And that's what I tend to do. I tend to seek out some of the songs that are quite easy to play. But again, I persevere listening to it, and I try to play along to it. And it's a way of actually, I find, to calm myself down, relax, and be able to switch off. So again, another example of where I've persevered to try and get better and better and better at doing something. And once again, there's opportunities for you to be able to show those levels of perseverance. So, my prop box is empty. That means it must be the end of the assembly. So do have a think about the questions that I shared at the start, and maybe it would be lovely for your parents to share some of their stories about how they've shown perseverance over the course of their lifetime. And I think you'll be surprised at how often we do persevere, especially in the face of adversity, particularly now in the last 10 weeks where schools have been closed and you've had to sort of persevere by keeping up with the work that's been uploaded, getting together a routine each day, and actually just trying to help out around the house maybe, and just make parents' life that little bit easier. So plenty of discussion points there, I am sure, for you to have with other people at home around those questions, and just really just pull apart that word perseverance and maybe think about what that definition is and what it means to you, most importantly. And again, referring back to the questions, what it means to you, why is it so important? Because actually it is a really valuable life skill to have, to persevere and not give up. And that's what it's all about. It's about not giving up. Thank you once again for accessing this assembly. We do hope you're keeping safe, and we're looking forward to hopefully seeing you at some point back at Godalming Junior School sometime soon. Keep working hard, keep becoming, striving to be those GJS super learners, and even if your name is up there, again, the work isn't over. Hopefully you continue to persevere, to continue to work hard and add other names to our board. And obviously someone may out there be our perseverance values champion come the end of this half term. We'll once again see you next week, where there'll be another topic of perseverance, where we might look once again at people in history that have really shown those levels of perseverance, stories around perseverance, and I'm sure it'll be something that you're able to take away and enjoy and reflect on and learn from. But in the meantime, once again, thank you very much. Take care, and I'll see you next week.